Lady Bird came out in 2017. It was the directorial debut of Greta Gerwig, to which the film was nominated for an Oscar, and 2 years later, Gerwig's next film, Little Women, was also nominated. So, we must be in good hands. Let's dive right in. So we're dealing with another coming-of-age high school film, but it seems to be a lot more personal than most. So our story takes place all the way back in 2002. Our main character, Christine McPherson, played by Saoirse Ronan, likes to go by the name Lady Bird. Her main deal is that she's growing up, she wants to expand her wings, and she wants to go to a school outside of the state and try to move on beyond her normal life, family, friends, which means she's going to explore and try new things, including new romances, new friendships, which means she's also going to have a lot of conflict with her mother, Marion, played by Laurie Metcalf. And what makes this movie a little bit different is the pacing of it as well. This is definitely more so of a drama. This is not a high school comedy by any means. So partly what makes this movie unique is its pacing. It's not really your run-of-the-mill high school comedy. It's much more of a full-on drama. In fact, the movie's really much more of a reflection piece, to which supposedly the original screenplay for this movie was about 400 pages, and that Greta Gerwig based it loosely off of her life. Semi-autobiographical, but not that she said this all necessarily happened to her, but these are similar experiences that she had growing up. So clearly this is a very personal project, and it does kind of play through like we're playing through someone's real life. There's a lot of moments in the movie where we do sort of have this slower pace, and then it suddenly starts picking up, sort of like some kind of awkward montage. And I don't mean that in a bad way. There's just a lot of scenes that sort of open up in the middle of a conversation, or just end and move right on to the next one. So that might be a little jarring for most audiences, but if you keep it in mind that this is sort of a self-portrait, so to speak, I think you're going to enjoy the movie a lot more. Because especially since a big selling point of the movie is the dynamic between the mother-daughter relationship. The two disagree on a lot of things, we see them fight a lot, but we see how much they care for each other by the end of the movie, and I do think it's a really powerful piece of the film. Unfortunately, it's not really like the main piece of the film. The main piece of the film is still about Lady Bird growing up and sort of this journey of self-discovery. If there's one nitpick I do have about the movie is that its slew of side characters don't really seem to feed into the main story very well. You have a whole slew of minor characters with big personalities that don't necessarily take away from the story's attention, but feed a lot into the main character's story and growth. Unfortunately, we don't really have that here. I mean, we see her father, he's going through some issues. We see her brother, he's going through some issues. She has a friend who's coming out. She has a falling out with her best friend, and they get back together. There's just sort of a lot of episodic things that happen, but don't necessarily change the ending of the story. Ultimately, our main character wants to find some kind of individuality, and she gets it, but learning some life lessons along the way. She does explore romances and her sexuality, she explores other friendships, and ultimately she does get to go check out a new school. And what's fascinating though is that I feel like there's a really fascinating epiphany towards the end of the movie. Without giving any spoilers, she kind of has this notion that she journeys out and she's able to kind of find herself, but it makes her realize how much she misses home and is suddenly becoming more grateful for her friends and family and what she has in her life. We even see her returning back to her old name, Christine, showing her acceptance of self. And I feel like there's something really powerful there, but that's kind of where the movie stops. And I really wish that's something that could be explored a lot more. I went through a similar experience where I kind of moved out of state and tried to sort of start anew and, start a new job, go to a new school, kind of start afresh. And by the time I went back home and, revisited my friends and family, I had a newfound, gratitude for everything I had in my life. And I feel like there's something similar here, and there's something really good here that I really wanted to be pushed even further. Another interesting point is that our main character is in Catholic school. They're not saying anything bad about Catholic school. It is sort of an obstacle to Lady Bird's need to find some kind of individuality, but it's not necessarily seen as anything bad or good. So they're not saying religion is a bad thing like a lot of movies do, and they're not saying it's something to lean on like, certain people would say too. Despite this being a story about a lead female character, her story's not dominated by a romance or a man or anything in particular like that, so there's something a little bit refreshing there as well. And I thought this was an interesting detail, but Saoirse Ronan actually wouldn't wear certain makeup so that she would look more like your average, typical teenager. Which, yes, most teenagers dye their hair, look kind of greasy, have acne, so I thought this was a really faithful way to represent her role. So overall, I would say this is not a particularly unique take on the high school coming-of-age story, but there is a lot of sort of raw emotion that comes from this type of thing. Because the powerful pieces of this film are the mother-daughter relationship, sort of this like raw portrait of a person's life, and this like self-discovering journey to appreciation. Because that's another thing I have to mention is the acting in the film is stellar. It feels very raw, down to earth, and it feels real. Lady Bird gets my score of 3.5 stars. So with all that said and done, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have you all seen Lady Bird? If not, What else have you been watching lately? Comment below, let me know, and of course, stay tuned right here to see more.